For these blueprints, we are looking at activity 1.2, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And previously we had practiced putting together a blueprint and doing a shape, and now we're just going to be doing some practice shapes, working on our 3D, because when we get to our puzzle cube, those shapes could get very crazy, and I want to give you as much practice as possible. These are the shapes that we're going to be drawing, and we have 4 different shapes, and then after that we'll have some conclusion questions to complete, and then we'll be able to jump right into 1.3, and we'll be able to actually start doing some project work that's for your 3D cube. Now I'm going to be referencing this as I draw, and I would say for you that you need to have your paper in front of you as well, just so you have something visually to see. Now we'll be putting these together with the purple blocks. I have purple linking cubes, but yours can be any color. All right, so I have 6 of the linking cubes, and we are going to put them together into our first shape, which is a C shape. Just like that. You will have an extra one left over. That's for our more advanced shapes. So I'm going to set my paper aside, and I will set this to the side so that I can see what I'm doing. And then we need a sheet of graph paper, a pencil, and a ruler. Now we will not be turning our paper like a typical blueprint because we're just doing sketching practice. So you're going to want to have your paper in portrait mode or up and down. Rotate my camera some so that you'll see my paper straight on. Okay, so we're going to label this as 3D shape practice. Anytime you're using graph paper, I suggest that you write in all capital letters so that it's easier to read. And it'll just become a habit for you once you get done. Then I'm going to put an A for our first shape. Now to get us started, for every shape we're going to count over 3 blocks and then down by 8. And then this will be our starting point. I'll always put a dot where my starting point is just to keep us centered. Let's go ahead and zoom in so you can see what I'm doing a little better. So an easy way to do these 3D shapes is just to go a little piece at a time. You want to have a starting point and then work your way around the shape. Otherwise, it'll lead to some mess ups along the way. All right, so for this one, we're going to start here. And the way I visualize it, these aren't drawn to scale, but for each cube, like one of these, it's 2 squares on the graph paper by 2 squares on the graph paper. And it's almost, if you look, it's almost the same size, just about. And that way it helps you see it a little better, but it's also not taking over all your paper. So anytime I'm saying to draw a line, unless stated otherwise, it's going to be 2 blocks each time. So we're going to do a line up, then back down to the bottom, and we're going to do a line diagonally up. Now when you go diagonally, you need to make sure that your blocks are being divided directly in half. Like that. On this line, straight up and down. And then you're going to want to connect your lines like this. All right, next we're going to go down here to the bottom of where our starting dot is and draw our line straight up, to a diagonal rather, both on the bottom and the top. And then connect your lines. For our next line, we're going to go back up here, and we are going to be going back by 2 blocks, which means, or 2 cubes, which means it's going to be a line of 4. Okay. Then we're going to go diagonally down by 3 cubes, which means it's going to be 6 squares. Making sure you have all the squares lined up in half. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Okay. And remember, you can pause this at any time. Then from this point, we're going to go diagonally down by the 3 or 2 blocks rather. So it means it's going to be 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And just to check yourself, it should diagonally meet up with this line up here. We're going to draw it by 2. And we need to account for this space right here. So that's why we're not drawing the line completely straight across. This run back by 2. And then you're going to want to connect this line with this line. Draw a straight line down. That's 2 squares, both here and here. And then you want to connect your lines. And I'm a little off. There we go. I'm going to do a straight line down here by 2 blocks. Connect your lines. Now here we have to draw a line, but we're not going to do the full 2 lines because it gets hidden by this block here. There we go. Now, if you wanted to bring this up a notch, you could show the hidden lines. And when we draw hidden lines on blueprints, they're represented by dashed lines. So as you'll see, we draw our lines in to show these cubes, but they're behind this main piece here. And what these dashed lines show us is that that's hidden, but it's still there. So if we line this up, it should be roughly about the same size as your cubes, so you can visually check that. And there's our first shape. If you want, you can take the time to shade in your edges. You don't have to do that. It just looks nice whenever you ink it. There we go. So there's that shape. The next shape we're going to be doing is this shape here. Now this one can be tricky if you don't take your time with it. So we'll go ahead and modify our cubes. So we use this shape here. Bring your extra one over. And you're then going to attach it up like this. So you have a T shape and then you have a tall piece here. And we're going to go down 3 from the bottom edge of this piece, and then put our B for our next shape, and then the 3 over and 8 down, and leave your dot. So that's our starting line for our next shape. Okay, so for this shape, again, just like before, it is a little bit more difficult, but if we take our time, it'll be perfectly okay. You can pause this video at any time. So starting down here with our starting line, we are going to start by going up by 2 blocks worth, which means it's going to be 4 squares. Okay. And then we're going to go down by 2 squares because this is just 1 block wide. We're going to create a V shape and we're going to go up. Then here down at this bottom, we are going to go down by 2 blocks. Here and here. And connect your lines. Okay. Using this here, we're going to go up by 2, diagonally of course, and then the same thing here, you're going to connect your lines. And this is your first piece. Now, when we do these, it is going to look a little weird because we're doing it isometrically. So sometimes the angles look a little off, but it works out in the end. Going back down to your starting dot, we are going to be drawing down towards yourself diagonally by 2 blocks. That means it's going to be 4 squares on your paper. Now you need to make sure that it goes through perfectly through the center because with this type of shape, whenever you're off by just a hair, it skews it just enough as you go through that it causes some issues. We're going to go here and we're going to go down by 2. And then connect our lines. We're going to go diagonally up to the right, 2 squares, down by 2 squares, and connect our lines. You're going to go back up here, go down by 2, and again down by 2. Just like this. Up by 2. Up by 2. And then down. So what we're working on right now is this piece right here. So we're going to be working back and then over. So we're going to go up to the left and diagonally by 2. Check your lines, make sure it's lining up still, which it is, and you're going to go diagonally up by 2 to the right, down by 2, and this is going to be just like, it's just like the last one that we did. There's going to be a hidden line, and I'm not going to worry about that till I get done. We can finish it up if we'd like to later. So we're going to go up by 2, and then connect your lines here like this. And there we have our shape. You've got to be very careful with your lines. So I'm going to show you an example where one did not get folded correctly. or the angles weren't right. And so here's what it's supposed to look like. But then here we can see where angles just didn't get put correct. Some things got messed up on this ledge here. So it's important that you take your time, if anything looks weird, to erase so that you don't have to start all over again when you're trying to do your blueprints, because that's time that you could be using to build your product. So we're going to go ahead and put in our hidden lines like we said we're going to, and it goes in by 1 square. And it goes in just like this. And goes just like that. Okay. Do your shading if you like to. Again, that's not a must. What I do is I just lightly scribble in the pencil, and then you just rub over it with your finger very lightly. It just gives a little bit of depth and dimension to it. And then we have our shape here. Okay, so we should be able to, if you spaced everything out right and you have the same size graph paper as I do, you should be able to fit this next shape on the paper, because it's 3 high. So let's go ahead and check ourselves just in case, because it's going to be 3 cubes high. And actually, with my size graph paper, I'm not able to fit it down here unless we adjusted the size of the squares to be 1 by 1. But that would make drawing it a little bit more difficult. And also, we want to make sure that everything when we sketch is generally the same size. So it's okay if you take your paper and you can flip it over and go from there. Now, if we were inking this, you would want to have just one side per graph paper because the ink would go through the back. But because we're not inking this, you don't need to worry about bleed through. So we'll just go ahead and use the back. So we're going to put C for the 3rd shape. Just like before, we're going to go 3 over and then 8 down. And then put your starting dot. Okay. So the shape that we're doing this time looks like the number 1. Right, so we have the 3 here, and then it goes 1, 2, and then here like this. So it looks like the number 1. I'm going to rotate that around so that I can set that down flat. So to get us started, we are going to draw up by 2, straight up and down, and then diagonally down to the right by 2, up by 2. It's going to make an N, backwards N, of course. Or no, not a backwards N, I'm sorry. I thought it would show a mirror for you. And then back this way 2. And then straight up and down 2. And we'll go back by 2 cubes, which means it's going to be 4 squares on our graph paper. We're going to go down by 4 squares, so it's 2 cubes high for this part. and diagonally like this. We're just going to work our way around the shape, giving it its 3D look. Go straight up and down here by the 4. I'm going to connect these lines. Up by 4. Connect your lines. So now you can see with this shape just how crazy isometric can be. It can get a little weird. So I go down by 2, down by 2, connect your lines, and then we're going to connect this line with this line. Now we don't want to forget about this part right here. So again, we're going to have a hidden line. You stop here and then you do the dashed lines to here. Now the only thing is you aren't going to see this line here, so we don't need to draw anything else for that dashed line except for right here. And then it stops. So that's the shape. This one wasn't as difficult as the other. Now this last one's going to be a challenge, and I am very confident that you'll be able to do it. So we're going to put our shading in. And last but not least, again, we're going to go down by 3. And go over and do our letter D. Go over by 3 and down by 8. And then leave your dot. That's their starting dot. So this one is a very weird shape. We have our shape like this along the edge. Then we have a straight like this and like this. Fits together like this. So it's that C shape with an extra one on top, or you can just cake these 2 V pieces and place them together like this. So this is the image that they show. This is what we're going for. Of course, our angles, just to help us learn this a little better, are slightly different than what they're going to show on the Project Lead the Way. That's because we're using regular graph paper instead of the isometric graph paper. I want you guys to have a little bit of a challenge with that. And so we're using the regular graph paper. And then once you get used to using that, then we can switch you over to the isometric where they have the lines already built in. But I know you guys can do it. We've been working with blueprints for quite a while. So down here with our starting line, we're going to go up by 1 cube. So that means 2 squares. And then we're going to go diagonally up to the left and the right, both by 1 cube width. So it's going to be 2 to the left and to the right. Make sure to fix your lines. If you notice after you've drawn it that it is not the right angle, then make sure that you fix that before you move on, because again, it's going to skew it if you don't fix it while it's still a fresh line. So if we were to look, let me zoom in a little closer to this. If you were to look at this line here, you can see just how it's just slightly off. That's going to mess up our whole blueprint. So we just need to erase it. And redraw it. So now you can see it lines up that line. And I can see here that I need to fix that one as well. Let's go ahead and zoom out, and I'll fix that line too. There we go. And then lines here. You want to go straight down by 1 block's worth. So that'd be 2. And then you want to connect your lines. Going up diagonally by 2 squares. Connect your lines. Now we can keep building. So we're going up by 2. Go diagonally up. And go down by 2. Diagonally down by 2. Connect your lines with here and here. Now start to notice we're starting to get our shapes down. Straight down by 2 here. You will connect these 2 lines. Now we're going to start to deviate away from these little blocks that we have. So we're going to be going down by 2 linking cubes. That means we're going down by 4 instead of 2. There's another line that's slightly off. Then we go up by 2 cubes worth, so it's going to be 4. Okay. And go up by diagonally by 2 to the left and to the right. Go down by 4. Connect your lines. Go down by 2 on this one because it's got a, remember where we have those V shapes. So we are going to connect these lines here. Sorry, I had to fix my pencil lead. There we go. Hopping back over here, we're going to do that top of the cube. So we're going to go up by 2 rather diagonally. Oops. There we go. There's the right square. Then we're going to draw our things down here. It's a hidden line, so we're going to stop it there with a solid line, and all the other lines I'm drawing right now are dashed. There we go. And there is our weird wonky shape. Oops, we forgot. forgot this weird line. There we go. Now we have our weird wonky shape, and we want to put in our shading. Anything that is not a top-facing face. Right, and there we go. So now that you're done with these shapes, you have a challenge to where you are going to be putting together these cubes based on what you see on this mystery object. If we don't have time for that, we won't do that. But if you want to on your own time, if we don't get to it in class, what you're going to look at is this multi-view sketch, and using the blueprint, you are going to figure out what this shape is. And then after that, then you're going to draw the isometric 3D version of that. Once you get done with drawing that 3D piece, we have some conclusion questions to answer that will be collected. And it's what are the benefits of using an isometric sketch to communicate a design? What are the benefits of using a multi-view sketch to communicate a design? And what additional information could you add to a sketch to provide other team members with a more accurate design drawing? And so we should be able to get done with this tomorrow in class, or at the most by the end of Tuesday. And then we'll be able to start into your next project. If you have any questions, you can pop in during recess, ask on Classroom, or send me a message through Live Grades or Remind. Have a good night.